The moment my wife and her sister took over the company, they fired me and called me lazy. So I walked out without a word. The next day, their dad found out and lost it. Turns out they never read the contract. And now I own more of the company than they do. When they saw the contract, they were shocked by what they saw because the contract was, I'd given everything to Crimson and Veil, my wife's family business, for years. Long nights hunched over spreadsheets, endless meetings with suppliers, and every ounce of effort I could muster to make it grow. It wasn't just a job to me. It was a promise I'd made to Clarissa when we got married. A way to prove I belonged in her world. So when she and her sister Bianca called me into the boardroom that morning, I figured it was about the new expansion plans I'd been working on. I walked in with a stack of papers, ready to talk numbers, but the air felt wrong. Clarissa sat there, arms crossed, her face blank like she barely knew me. Bianca leaned back in her chair, smirking like she just wants something. Julian, Bianca started, her voice sharp and cold. We're letting you go. We don't need lazy people dragging us down. Lazy? The word hit me like a slap. I'd been up until 2 a.m. the night before fixing a deal they'd almost botched. I glanced at Clarissa, waiting for her to say something, anything to defend me. She didn't. She just stared at the table, her fingers tapping lightly, like this was nothing to her. My chest tightened, but I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I forced a polite smile, the kind I'd used 1,000 times to smooth things over, nodded once, and said, all right. Good luck. Then I turned and walked out, my footsteps echoing in the silence they left behind. The rest of the day blurred past me. I drove home in a daze, the steering wheel slick under my palms from the sweat I didn't realize was there. Our house, hers, really, with its marble floors and high ceilings, felt emptier than usual when I stepped inside. I dropped my keys on the counter and sank into the couch, staring at the ceiling. How could she do this? After 8 years of marriage, after all I'd poured into her family's company, she let Bianca fire me like I was some random hire off the street. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of the spiral. It was a text from Marco, the accountant who'd been with me through every late-night budget crunch, heard what happened. It read, I don't think they read your contract. I frowned, rereading the words. My contract. I hadn't thought about it since I signed it years ago, back when Raphael, Clarissa's dad, was still running things. What did Marco mean? I typed back a quick, what's in it? But he didn't reply right away. I leaned back, the gears in my head starting to turn. If there was something in there, something they'd missed, maybe this wasn't over yet. I got up and poured myself a glass of water, trying to shake the sting of Bianca's words, lazy. I'd rebuilt their supply chain from scratch when it collapsed 3 years ago. I'd landed the Peterson account, the one that kept us afloat during that rough patch. And Clarissa, she knew all of it. She'd seen me stumble home exhausted, kiss me goodnight when I fell asleep at the kitchen table with my laptop still open. Yet today, she didn't even look at me. I took a sip, the cold water doing nothing to ease the heat building in my chest. Was this her idea? Did she want me gone too? Or was she just too weak to stand up to Bianca? I didn't know which hurt more. My phone buzzed again. Marco, check the merger clause from the subsidiary deal. You're still tied to it, the subsidiary deal. 5 years ago, when we acquired that little tech firm to boost Crimson and Veil's patents, I've been neck deep in it, negotiating terms while Raphael clapped me on the back and called me his right hand. A merger clause. What did that even mean now? I set the glass down and rubbed my temples. The first flicker of hope, or maybe something darker, stirring inside me. I spent the next hour digging through old files in my home office, the ones I'd kept from back when I trusted Clarissa to have my back. The contract was buried in a folder labeled CNV Merger 2020, yellowed at the edges but still legible. I skimmed the pages, my eyes catching on legalese I barely understood until I hit page 17. There it was, in black and white, my name, listed as co-chairman of the subsidiary with full authority over its assets. Assets that included Crimson and Veil's intellectual property, trademarks, patents, the whole backbone of the company. My heart thudded. They couldn't fire me from that. It wasn't their call. I sat back, staring at the paper, a slow smile tugging at my lips. Not the polite one this time, but something real. They'd made a mistake, a big one, and they didn't even know it yet. I picked up my phone and texted Marco. Found it. What now? His reply came fast. Sit tight. Let him figure it out. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of the day shifting. They thought they'd cut me loose, but they just handed me the rope. All I had to do was wait. The morning after they fired me, I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing, cutting through the quiet of the house like a knife. I rolled over, the bed cold on Clarissa's side. She hadn't come home last night, probably crashing at Bianca's after their little victory. The screen lit up with Raphael Veil's name, her father, the man who'd built Crimson and Veil from nothing and trusted me with it when I married into the family. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the button. What did he want? To apologize? To gloat? I answered anyway, my voice rough from sleep. Hello? His voice boomed through the line loud and furious like a storm rolling in. Julian, why the hell did they fire you? Haven't they read the damn contract? I froze, the words sinking in slow and heavy. Raphael didn't know. He hadn't been in that boardroom, hadn't seen Clarissa's blank stare or Bianca's smirk. I let the question hang there, not sure how to answer or if I even should. I don't know, Raphael, I said finally, keeping my tone steady. You'd have to ask them. He cursed under his breath something about those girls and ruining everything, but I barely heard it. My mind was already racing back to that merger clause Marco tipped me off about, the one buried in my contract. Raphael's anger meant something big was coming, and I had a feeling I was holding the key to it. I got out of bed and shuffled to the kitchen, the phone still warm in my hand from the call. The house felt too big, too silent without Clarissa's usual chatter or the clink of her coffee mug. I made myself a pot of coffee, the smell filling the air as I replayed Raphael's words. Haven't they read the damn contract? He sounded panicked, not just mad, like he knew something they didn't. I poured a cup and sat at the table, staring out the window at the gray sky. Yesterday, I'd been blindsided, kicked out like trash. But now I was starting to see the cracks in their plan. That subsidiary deal from 5 years ago wasn't just some footnote. It was a lifeline, and I was still tied to it. Co-chairman of the IP holding, with control over everything that made Crimson and Veil worth a damn. I took a sip, the bitterness matching the taste in my mouth from how they treated me. If Raphael was this worked up, it meant Clarissa and Bianca had no idea what they'd stepped into, and I wasn't about to tell them. My phone buzzed again, a text from Marco this time. Raphael just called me too. He's losing it, said the girl screwed up big. I smirked, typing back. He called me first. What's he saying? Marco's reply came quick, kept asking about the merger terms. Think he's worried about the patents. The patents, of course, Crimson and Veil wasn't just a name. It was a brand built on tech designs and trademarks, all locked up in that subsidiary I'd helped acquire. Without my signature, they couldn't license anything, couldn't move forward on new deals. I set the phone down and leaned back, the coffee warming my hands. Yesterday, I'd felt like a fool walking out of that boardroom with my tail between my legs, but today, I was starting to feel like the one in control. Raphael's call wasn't just a rant. It was a warning, one Clarissa and Bianca hadn't heard yet. I wondered how long it'd take them to figure it out, how long before they came crawling back. I spent the rest of the morning pacing the house, my mind spinning with what-ifs. What if they tried to fight it? What if they called their fancy lawyers? I didn't know much about legal stuff, but I knew enough to trust Marco and Raphael. If he was this mad, it meant the contract was ironclad. I stopped by the window again, watching a delivery truck rumble down the street. My whole life had been about keeping things steady, fixing problems at work, smoothing things over with Clarissa when she got stressed, even biting my tongue when Bianca snapped at me. But steady didn't matter anymore. They pushed me out, and now they were about to find out what that cost them. My phone rang again. Raphael, round 2. I picked up. Ready this time, Julian, he said, quieter now like he'd worn himself out. I'm sorry about this. I didn't know they'd pull something so stupid. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. It's done, I said. But what's in that contract, Raphael? What's got you so riled up? He paused, then let out a dry laugh. You're still co-chair of the subsidiary. They can't run the company without you. I didn't say anything. Just let that sink in. He was right, and they didn't even know it yet. I was still reeling from Raphael's call when the reality of it all started to settle in, heavy and real, like a weight I could feel in my bones. Clarissa and Bianca had fired me without a second thought, but now they were about to find out what that really meant. It was late afternoon when Marco texted me again. They're in a meeting with the lawyers. Word is, they just read the contract. I could picture it. Clarissa sitting stiff at the head of the table, Bianca pacing like a caged animal, both of them staring at those pages like they'd turned to poison. I didn't have to be there to know what they'd found. 5 years ago, when we bought the tech subsidiary to beef up Crimson and Veil's portfolio, I'd been named co-chairman of it. It wasn't a big deal back then, just a title Raphael threw in to keep things smooth during the merger. But now it was everything. That subsidiary owned all the intellectual property rights, the patents, the trademarks, the designs that kept the company alive. Without my sign-off, they couldn't do a damn thing. I sat on the couch, the contract spread out on the coffee table in front of me, and let that sink in. They tried to cut me out, but they locked themselves in a cage instead. I leaned forward, running my finger over the words on page 17. Julian Rivera, appointed co-chairman with full authority over subsidiary assets. It was right there, plain as day. signed and stamped. I remembered that day vaguely, Raphael laughing over beers after the deal closed, saying I'd earned it. I hadn't thought much of it then. I was just happy to be part of a team. But Clarissa and Bianca? They'd never bothered to dig that deep. They'd taken over the company from Raphael last month, all smug and sure of themselves, and figured they could toss me aside like yesterday's news. I wondered what their faces looked like now. Pale, probably, with that pinched look Clarissa got when she was stressed and Bianca's mouth twisted tight with anger. They brought in some hotshot lawyer from New York, Noelle, to help with the transition. I'd met her once, cold as ice, with a handshake that felt like a challenge. She'd be the one breaking the news. I bet her voice flat as she told them they were screwed. I got up and walked to the kitchen, needing to move to think the house was still too quiet. Clarissa's absence like a ghost hanging around. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, popped it open, and took a long swig. What were they doing right now? Yelling at each other? Blaming Noelle? I could almost hear Bianca's voice, sharp and loud. How did we miss this? And Clarissa, quieter, trying to stay calm even though her hands would be shaking. They thought they were so smart, firing me in front of everyone like that, making it a show. But they didn't know the half of it. Without my approval, they couldn't renew licensing deals, couldn't push new products, couldn't even access the bank accounts tied to the subsidiaries' assets. It was all frozen, and I was the only one with the key. I took another sip, the cold bottle sweating in my hand, and felt a strange mix of anger and satisfaction bubbling up. They'd humiliated me, but now they were the ones stuck. I went back to the couch and picked up my phone, scrolling through old messages from Clarissa. Just last week, she texted me about dinner plans, all casual and sweet. Home by 7. Let's order pizza. Now she couldn't even look at me. I tossed the phone aside and stared at the contract again, my mind racing. What would they do next? Try to talk me into signing off? Threaten me? I didn't know Noelle well, but she struck me as the type to twist words into knots, looking for a loophole. Good luck with that. Raphael had made sure this thing was airtight. I leaned back, closing my eyes, and let myself imagine their panic. The board would hear about this soon, and the clients too. People would start asking questions, and Clarissa and Bianca wouldn't have answers. I wasn't sure what I'd do yet. Part of me wanted to watch it all burn. Part of me just wanted them to admit they were wrong. But one thing was clear, they'd underestimated me, and that was their biggest mistake. The beer was half gone when my phone buzzed again. Marco, with an update. Noel's freaking out. Says they need your signature or the whole company's dead in the water. I smirked, setting the bottle down. Dead in the water. That sounded about right. They built their castle on sand, and I was the tide coming in. I didn't reply to Marco yet. I needed to think this through, figure out my next move. But for now, I just sat there, the contract in my lap, and let the quiet of the house wrap around me. They'd find out soon enough what it meant across me. And when they did, I'd be ready. I decided to keep my mouth shut after that complete silence no matter how much they tried to pull me back in. The day after Marco's text about Noelle freaking out, my inbox started lighting up. First came an email from Bianca, short and snippy, like she was doing me a favor. Julian, we need to discuss your exit terms. Call me. Exit terms? I almost laughed. She still thought she was in charge, like I was some loose end she could tie up with a quick chat. I didn't reply. Then Clarissa texted her words careful, like she'd rehearsed them. Can we talk? This got out of hand. Out of hand? She'd sat there while her sister called me lazy and kicked me out of the company I'd helped build. I stared at the message for a minute, my thumb hovering over the screen, but I didn't type anything back. I tossed the phone on the couch and walked away. They didn't deserve my words, not yet. If they wanted to squirm, I'd let them. I had the upper hand now, and I wasn't about to give it up just because they were starting to sweat. I needed to clear my head, so I drove into town, the familiar streets blurring past as I replayed everything in my mind. The contract, Raphael's call, Marco's updates, it was all piling up, but I wasn't ready to act. Not until I knew exactly what was happening on their end. I pulled into a little coffee shop I used to hit with Geraldine, Raphael's old assistant, back when we'd grab lunch between meetings. She'd always liked me, said I was the only one who treated her like a person instead of a secretary. On a whim, I called her. Julian, she answered, her voice warm and surprised. I heard what those girls did. You okay? I smiled despite myself. I'm fine, Geraldine. Just figuring things out. What's the word over there? She laughed, low and knowing. Chaos, honey. Absolute chaos. She told me clients were calling nonstop, confused about delayed contracts. Suppliers were holding shipments, waiting for approvals that weren't coming. Investors were spooked, whispering about pulling out. They're running around like headless chickens, she said. And that Noelle? She's sniffing at everyone, but she's got no answers. I ordered a coffee while we talked, the barista sliding it across the counter with a nod.